love that song. Gives me life. Gives me fucking life. Good morning, y'all. Good Monday morning. If it's a Monday morning, you already know the forecast. It's gonna be a shitstorm. Thank you for tuning in. We got a few questions right down here. I want to get into what is the fool? What are the densities of the fool? Because I talked about the triple blackness of space being triple black. We'll get into it. We'll get into it. Let's get into it. Yeah, I be digging. How's it going, y'all? How's it going? Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Cast a spell in the chat. Thank you for tuning in. Brady, Aaliyah Jenkins, thank you for tuning in. Good to see you. Good morning. Ryan Morrow, 100% agree, big boy. Oh my God, look, typed it out. Look, I'll give you that. Man, typed it out. We got a nice show planned for you guys today. Nice show. I didn't necessarily want to do a masculine segment this week because I wanted to see how much of this I could get in there. But more than likely, we're gonna have some words about it. I mean, what's the man that your boy Will Smith out here slapping the shit out of folks. I know everybody hates Chris. I get it, but look. I'm pretty sure the only reason he's slapping right now is because March is so far away from August. Let's stop. Too late to be slapping, bro. You mad at the wrong people. Besides, Lupita should have got up and slapped Jada. Look, she's a pedophile. No, we don't slap for that, though. G.I. Jane joke. Let's stop. Anyways, fuck it. Misha X, nice to see you in the chat. It's a good day. Of course it is. It's a Monday morning. Don't just see the weather. I'm going to start this off like I like to start this off, you guys. I got a little bit of a, boom, we just here. Spirit Spotlight, okay? Do I want to say anything about him before? I don't want to say anything about him before the segment. I'm going to let you see the segment. Don't believe me, just watch. Let's get it started. Among the various scattered and fragmented collections of information on the pantheons of old, the Norse pantheon is considerably intact. Today, I ask the question, who is Odin? The god Odin, also known as Wodan, or Wotan, is a highly revered deity within Germanic mythology, more specifically Norse mythology, which, as I said, has a wide scope of intact information. From the Roman occupation of various regions of Germania and well through the tribal expansion periods of the Viking Age. Generally, he is associated with healing, death, both knowledge and wisdom, sorcery, poetry, battle, and the runes of the alphabet. He is a very complex deity, and quite a bit can be said about him, more especially depending on who you ask. He is the divine patron of both rulers and outlaws alike, and often noted for his role as a father. He is an icon for the tempering of wisdom and for seeking greater knowledge. However, he doesn't seem to care much for things like fairness, justice, or convention in general. He is the ruler of Valhalla, a location in the afterlife for those warriors who died both a valiant and honorable death. He is depicted having a long beard and carrying a spear known by the name of Gungnir. He is said to have one eye, which is a result of one of his many widespread tails. He wears long robes and a broad-billed hat, when not clad in his wartime garb, seeing as how he is also attributed to war and battle. He is known for having animal companions, such as a pair of wolves, known by the names Geri and Freki, as well as an 8-legged horse named Sleipnir, which was said to be the greatest horse of all. He even had a pair of ravens who acted as his informants. Their names were Hugin and Munin, and were his most notable companions, flying around the world each day, only to return to him and whisper in his ear all the knowledge that they had found. There is also talk that he possessed a crossbow that could shoot 10 bolts and hit 10 different targets. He possessed a golden ring that could drip from itself new golden rings of the same quality and size, as well as a high-seated throne from which he could see into all the realms. Odin's never-ending pursuit of knowledge has taken him on many adventures and has landed him in some rather odd positions. One such adventure and position is the one where he gains the title of God of the Gallows and hangs himself from a very special tree. One day, while sitting upon his throne in Asgard, Odin spied the powerful beings known as the Norns, or the goddesses of fate, making use of their mystical runes and wielding great power over the world, dictating fate and shaping destiny for all within the 9 worlds. Odin himself could not decipher these runes and grew envious of the power that the Norns did wield. He decided that he too would have this power. The runes, however, only revealed themselves to those who were deemed worthy. Therefore, Odin decided to take action, to prove his worthiness of this power and to have the runes reveal themselves to him. To do this, Odin decided to both emasculate and hang himself on one of the branches of the great tree known as Yggdrasil, for him as a male to ultimately be initiated into these female mysteries. To be initiated into the concealed mysteries, Odin had to hang himself upside down and bear upon his flesh a self-inflicted wound, that he would bleed from his side as women do during their menses, allowing him passage into being worthy of the knowledge of the runes. Odin stabbed himself with his own spear and then hung himself from a windy place upon the tree for 9 days and 9 nights, demanding that none come to his aid in any way, whether it be food, water, or some form of healing. At the end of the 9th night, the runes did reveal themselves to Odin. Once he was free from his bindings to that tree, he then carved those runes into the bark of that tree so that he could share these mysteries with both men and gods alike. Even today, Odin has made various appearances in countless forms of media, all the way from fiction novels to the highly popular Marvel movies. The best of the old gods are either very hard to kill or never die at all. Smooth. Yeah, Odin is a very good example of a deity. Okay, because like I said in the video, a lot of the stuff people are working with, it's at the very least, the information is highly fragmented and fractured. All right, it's been not only some of it lost in certain respects. People who find it decide how they're going to translate it. And so you don't necessarily need to get too caught up in a lot of these old things. But the good thing about the Norse mythology is that a lot of that is still intact. Okay? When you're looking at Odin, and mind you, I think this is also relevant because writing itself is a feminine attribute. The possession of knowledge and wisdom, however, those are masculine attributes. Like in the Egyptian pantheon, you had Tehuti and Sheshet. Sheshet was his wife. She did the actual writing. He's the one who had the knowledge, though. So yeah, there's that, because in the same story, the knowledge of the runes, which are basically the runes of the alphabet, those were held by the fates. It was a feminine mystery, and so he didn't necessarily become a female, but he took on certain qualities or attributes to embody that. All right, so. Well, my biggest reason for showing a deity like that is, well, first of all, what I usually talk about is self-deification. He's tired of people messing with him, but stop. I ain't tired enough. Marshawn, nice to see you in the chat, man. Nice to see you in the chat. You too, Dawson. Welcome in. Welcome in. Yeah, I usually talk about self-deification. All right. If you ask me, the left-hand path proper is self-deification, but there's two sides to that. There's the self and the deification. All right. If you're going to get deification, you're going to have a knowledge of the nature of deity. Okay. And so when you're deifying these different things, or you're even interacting with deities that you come across, you have to know the nature of how they're composed. The same way Odin has his ravens and his wolves and his horse is likened to the manner in which you as your body have your hands and your feet or your tongue or your heart. You're looking at one whole. All right, each of the deities is a whole in and of themselves, and the whole pantheon is mapping out something. Okay. Well, generally the whole pantheon is going to be mapping out the larger reality at large, because what religions do for you is why you don't want to run away from religion. Don't run away from religion. All right. I'm not telling you to go be religious, but I'm saying don't run away. Stop being scared of it. What religions would do for you, which is why people are having so much issues, is it gave you a description of reality at large. It gave you a description of what the self is, and then it gave you a description of the continuity between the two. Okay? It told you what reality at large was, it told you what the self was, and it told you what the continuity of those two is. All right? Example, you in Christianity. They telling you where everything comes from and why it's here. They're telling you how you got here, how humans get here, and then they tell you what you're supposed to do to connect the two. Very simple. But see, motherfuckers get out here, they run from religion, and they just start making up anything. Fucking flat earth, there's aliens, the Anunnaki. Like, they desperately want to have an idea of an idea for those three questions. All right. All religions answer those three questions. You abandon a religion, you will not know those things unless you go find it again. All right. And the good thing about occult philosophy is that it underpins all the things that you see in occultism, all the different ways that these religions and religions express themselves. No, it's not the Greek pantheon, it's the Norse pantheon. I might have came out of my mouth and said that. But no, Cass, it's the that was a Norse pantheon. It is a child of Germanic mythology at large. Yeah, history of Europe stuff, right? But another reason I showed Odin is because there are many similarities between Odin and Shiva. Like I said at the end, some gods, for the most part, don't even die. Like, what you have as Odin was a newer form of what somebody else would have considered Shiva in another place. Okay? And like I also said, some of these gods, they'll come in the same form over and over and over again. Like now you can go see all kind of stuff with Odin in it. But other gods, other deities, they will be reborn as a different deity. All right, because one thing, what is deity? That's what people are having an issue with. What is deity? It's not spooky fuck magic like you were looking in Christianity. Oh, there's an angel coming. Oh, it's the vibration and it. I'm gonna get into that fucking vibration shit. Look, deity isn't something in the physical world. All right, this was the issue with Serapis, a man god. That's why there was so much controversy around it. Deity is not something in the physical world. Okay. For most of y'all, you're talking, I'm gonna leave the physical world, I gotta escape the physical world. You don't know the difference between one and the next. So how you gonna know when you get there? You're just gonna be feeling good. I'm getting better. I'm not eating. You know what? This is the thing. There's a lot of fakers out there. There's a lot of fakers. And if you want to get to a place where you can tell the fakes from the people who ain't fake, you have to stop faking. That's the only way you're going to be able to see it. You have to stop faking to yourself, hey, I get all this, or going to the weekly spiritual circle jerk where you just go in and everybody agrees with each other and the conversation doesn't move forward. All right, people are saying I'm talking metaphysics, but they're not talking metaphysics, they're just talking. If you're not going to debate or go back and forth about what it is you say you believe, or what the details of that is, you're not talking something that's going to be moving forward, but just finding a way to motivate yourself. All right, look, there are a lot of fakers, and that's what I want to get into here, okay? I'm going to explore the archetype of the Fool. If you're familiar with Tarot or the Greater Keys, well, you can say it's in the Greater Keys. This has had many different names throughout history, and my biggest reason for bringing it up, and I'll tell you in a segment. Matter of fact, show the segment. Don't tell what's going to be in the segment. Let the segment show what's in the segment, right? I've been meaning to put this one out for a minute. It's got two parts. Here's the first part. We're going to talk about some other stuff for a little while. And we're going to come back to the second part. That's what I tell you about the segment. See, I'm learning. I'm fucking learning. All right, y'all. Here we go. I plan on telling you a story, but here's my question. What's the deal with the archetype of ignorance, known as the Fool? So, I was interacting with someone on social media. Had to remind myself, the message, not the messenger. So, for now, we'll just say this person's name was Brandon. Brandon had made a post about Christianity. In fact, it was kind of his thing. Shit on dead niggas for being dead, and then vaguely make a claim about metaphysics every now and then, as if he knows what he's talking about. Well, naturally, being me, I decided to hop in the comments and see what he was talking about, ask a few questions. In all honesty, I wanted to know what else he knew about what he was talking about, aside from his elitist jabs at Christianity and the other dead niggas. So, I asked him. What he told me was that if he answered my questions, I wouldn't learn because I didn't do the research. Typical. That was something that I expected. These types say that illogical crap religiously. If I answer all your questions, you'll never learn. Even though the nigga didn't answer one question. It was what he said next that really caught my attention though. He said that the reason for all the jokes was that he was playing out the archetype of the Fool, and that I needed to lighten up. Called me a hotep, turned off his comments, and blocked me. Once again, typical. The Fool though. You see, I decided to examine that archetype some more, just to make sure I wasn't simply being a dick and thinking he was full of shit. I wanted to know where he was right about what he said, and what the details of that are. So, I decided to explore that archetype beyond the bounds of what I already knew on the subject. He was most certainly full of shit, but listen up, because some of the conclusions I've come to are quite interesting. For those who are for some reason unaware, the Fool is a reference to the major arcana of the framework that is, in contemporary times, known as the Tarot, although it's had various names throughout the ages. In fact, of the 22 archetypes of the major arcana, the Fool sits in the position of 0 and is the predecessor to the archetype of the Magician, which is in the position of 1. The simple assertion is that on the path to embodying the Magician, you must first embody the Fool. Not unlike the Zodiac, which depicts the journey of fire through its 12 major positions, the Tarot is in the same sense a depiction of the Fool's journey through a landscape of 22 positions. It's honestly not too complicated, and I do have plans to set out segments for these specific topics in the future. However, my concern for today is the nature of the Fool and its position at 0. As any basic occultist would know, especially one familiar with the nature of darkness, we know that 0 is a bit more complex than simply nothingness. More accurately, it is described as infinite potential unexpressed. Another name out of the many names for this infinite potential unexpressed is the triple blackness of space. Now keep in mind, this isn't just a fancy title to sound spooky. These words have meaning and are not simply a garnishment for auditory aesthetics. The nature of that unexpressed infinite potential is triune, meaning that it is composed of 3 units to form a unity, which is essentially part of the reason why, when that infinite unexpressed potential becomes expressed, it expresses as the Trinity. Not to get too deep into basic metaphysics here, but I'll try to draw the lines together for you. The archetype of the Fool is an archetype of ignorance. And, like I always say, ignorance is the precursor to knowledge. Said differently, before you know, you gotta not know. So, here I'm not saying whether or not this is good or bad. What I am saying is that with the Fool holding the position of 0, and with that unexpressed infinite potential that is 0 being triune, then the logic naturally follows as such, that there are 3 densities to the archetype of the Fool. Just like within the structure of the triple blackness of space as unexpressed infinite potential, there are 3 aspects to the whole. The subject here is the 3 densities of the Fool. So I will attach each density of ignorance to a density of the triple blackness of space. I like to keep it simple and denote those 3 aspects as the Great Father, the Great Mother, and the Great Child. Smooth. That's part 1. Don't worry, there's still more about it. I'm gonna finish the explanation. But I'm gonna start dividing some of these longer ones into 2 pieces, just so I can get in here. Yo, Calvin Chaos, good to see you in the chat, sir. Most certainly. Kundalini. Niggas out here, man. Kundalini. Louis, good to see you in here, man. Greetings. Maestro. Hey, man, after your meeting, come back and check the playback. Nice to see you dropped in, though. Puts on dust cap. Hell yeah, man. I wish I could get back to figuring out how to send those properly. But I just got to organize myself. Anyway. The Fool. Now look, I'm sure y'all have been on Instagram or somewhere where people are performing their spirituality for you, because all this shit's performative these days. You've seen, the new spiritual people make jabs at the old Christians and religious people. All right. Just like they were Christians, when they were Christians, had their nose up at everybody they could put their nose up to. But they decided, Christianity wasn't real. Now it's the Anunnaki or chakras or, not aliens, but 5th dimension. Now that's real. And now they look back at the people they used to be and throw their nose up. And if you call them out, here's what they'll say. It was a joke. Well, okay, I'm just joking out here, I'm being the fool. Trying to suggest, that simply because they call what they say a joke, that there's no validity to it, but I'm just out here saying. That's why a lot of motherfuckers just need to shut the fuck up. Like, what is this just saying? It's another lie. I get it. It's another lie. I'm not gonna be facetious. But the interesting point is the Fool is the archetype of ignorance, okay? And it's not simply, going out here being foolish. Like when people get the thing mixed up about the heart and mind of a child, it doesn't mean go play with little kid toys. That's not what it's talking about. Like, these motherfuckers were bad Christians. They take things way too literally and they miss the fucking point. All right? being the fool isn't simply being foolish. There's an aspect of it that is most certainly that, but you can't use it to continue to lie to yourself. And that's what people like this are doing. Like the motherfuckers who post nothing but simpish sex things. Like I'd be looking at this one motherfucker, man. He's always posting something that appeases to the idea of what women want. Some woman will shake a little bit of her butt, and then it cuts away to some dude who's just oh my god, but like chill out, bro. It's an ass. Okay, it looks nice, but why do you have to break down? It's I get it. You post one or two, hey, it's funny, every once in a while, like that's consistently it. And a lot of y'all motherfuckers ain't even hypersexual like you want to say you are. You're hurting for intimacy. I'm not saying don't go out here and get a bunch of cheeks, do what you do. I'm not just talking to men. I'm talking to both genders. Like, sex is alternative for intimacy. Y'all motherfuckers out here just having babies with whoever the fuck, though. I can't tell you, man. I can't tell you. Holy rollers. No, where did I hear that shit from? Dawson, where did I hear holy rollers from? I don't remember. Oh, no. What I'm thinking of is, what? Fucking holy divers. That's what I'm thinking of. Kevin, where's that from? Aversion. Yeah, just averting, it's passive aggressive stuff. Look, like I'm saying, if you want to get to a point where you get this stuff, you can't continue to lie to yourself. All right? People like this will most certainly look down on dead niggas and religious people. Like, I had one motherfucker I seen on the Instagram again. He was like, there it goes. He reposted his TikTok of him looking down on niggas who use sage. And so I'm asking questions. I got to, and I'm like, okay, so what's wrong with, like, what's the thing about this? Why, what are you trying to say? And it basically amounted to, it doesn't work because it's sage. It worked because you put your intention behind it. I'm like, okay, so if I put my intention behind sage, then doesn't that mean it works? See, you don't want to get out here trying to make little slights at people that you think should be less ignorant. All right? As if you somehow reached a pinnacle of ignorance. Because all you're doing is putting a cap on yourself. It's cap. It's cap. Not just because it's a lie, but because you don't move higher than the pinnacle. So you're sitting there acting like you're at the pinnacle. And you're not. Let the dead lie with the dead. Let the dead lie with the dead. But this is the reason you don't. And I'm not going to be pretentious. I'm not going to be facetious. This is the reason you don't. Because you still consider yourself among them. You still think you're one of them. You're impressed with yourself. You're measuring your progress on their ignorance. It's like I've said before. People who measure their progress in a race based on the fact that they're running faster than the audience. They didn't come to run. Of course you can run better than them. Imagine if Michael Phelps, hit his little swimming thing, and just jumped out the water, started talking shit to the audience. Ha ha, I beat you guys. Like, what the fuck? We didn't come to race. See, the in the world but not of it. This is the issue with y'all motherfuckers and just motivation and wish fulfillment. That's all people are in this for. And once they figure out their own personal pattern of what they're going to believe is motivation and wish fulfillment, either they sit around trying to be motivational all day or critique people's wish fulfillment techniques from shit they used to do. Like, you sitting here mad at your old self. That's really what it is. Fuck out of here, man. Christians who have their nose turned up. Holy rollers. Yes, Dio, chaos, Dio. Holy divers. Yeah, we see Christians who have their nose turned up. Okay, holy rollers. I'm gonna have to meme that. Holy rollers. Yeah, man. It's pretentious. And Once again, it takes away from the fact that you haven't examined what you believe. But this is another thing. Like, people get out here and this whole fake it till you make it thing, this whole everybody's right thing, it's blind faith. It's blind faith again. It's the same shit that got you in trouble in Christianity. Oh, everybody's right, so I'll go out here and whatever I'm saying is right, and if anyone's gonna challenge me, then they've got to convince me, and that's the only metric to determine whether or not I'm wrong. Huh, I'm not convinced I'm wrong. Huh, I'm not convinced I'm wrong. That's fucking easy. It's easy to say, hey, I'm not convinced I'm wrong. You have to convince me. If you don't want to be convinced, you don't have to be. See, you gotta want to find where you're wrong. Not just show Christians, hey, don't be scared of Baphomet. It's a goat picture. Like, niggas grow past Baphomet. Baphomet. Like, you motherfuckers in angels and demons. Like, okay, I'm running from angels because Christianity ain't the thing, but it's demons now. Like, that's reverse Christianity. Like, dig in. That shit ain't left-hand path. That shit's lukewarm. Get off the fence and make a decision. Lean into this shit. If you're going to say, I'm never coming back to the physical world, what's the difference between the physical and the non-physical? Where does one end and the other begin? And don't say something you heard somebody else say. Challenge your shit like you want to destroy it. Challenge it. Because you're going to be mad when I come around because I want to destroy it. Fuck you talking about, man? You're going to be mad when you see me, man. Turn this nigger off. Oh, he's low vibration. Fuck out of here. It's a Metallica song. Oh, it's Metallica. Okay. See? Kelvin would know. Kelvin would know this. Holier than thou. Yeah, don't come out here being more spiritual than thou. That's not going to get you anywhere you need to get to, okay? Now, Odin, like I was saying before, when I was talking about Odin, the feminine aspect is what controls writing. You take these initial runes and then you make you put them together in even more complex manners to make an even more complex idea. Okay. So you go from the runes to the words, but the writing isn't the same as the word itself. Okay? There's a distinction. Remember, the darkness is subtle. The writing of words and the words themselves are not the same thing. Okay? And there's a lot of talk about words. And me, most certainly, I'm going to talk to you about words. I think words are of the utmost importance. Be impeccable with your word. Be impeccable with your word. All right, and the spirit of the law is intent. I get it. The spirit of the law is intent, but its form are words. Its form is words, and so you need to check the form of your intention. It's not all about feeling it and being, this is what I meant and this is what my intention was. Okay, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You need to check your form. All right, look. I'm gonna jump into this a little bit, and I'm gonna get more into the words thing. I'm gonna get more into all of it. Fuck you talking about. Let's go. Now, I have heard many people excitedly say this or that about what words are, how they work, more especially in a spiritual sense. Let's see if we can bring some clarity to this subject. What exactly are words in a spiritual sense? With a good portion of us coming from some type of background connected to Christianity, I'm sure you're familiar with the verse, John 1, verse 1, chapter 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Any good Christian can tell you that this reference to the Word, in some circles called the Logos, is a reference to Christ the Son. If you have seen the Father, you've seen the Son. The Father didn't give the Son, He is the Son. However, this doesn't quite help us, in a practical sense anyways. Moving forward, then you have those who have left religion and say something completely different about what words are and how they work. They claim that words are vibrations. In fact, you'll hear them say things such as everything is vibration and frequency. Now, even though I'm tempted to dig into the question of what would be the distinction between those two, vibration and frequency, the subject for today is words. The idea behind the suggestion about vibration is that the sound waves used in words contain various other potentials nested within the amplitude of their waves. These ideas, however, have within them another problem. Sound waves are a part of the emergent physical world and are not based in the underlying reality behind space-time. In fact, if we are seeking to gain a left-hand path view of exactly what words are, basing our conceptions in sound waves and other aspects of the electromagnetic spectrum will inevitably bring our premises of thinking back to the physical world. Said differently, if we limit our conception of phonetics to sound waves and what the physical body's ears can hear, we miss out on seeing the roots of these conceptions. So then, let's answer the question. What are words, essentially? In their rawest of forms, words are symbols. That answer, however, is a bit too vague, because then we can simply ask the next question, well, what is a symbol? I'm glad you asked. A symbol, in essence, is a handle for thought. Here, look at it this way. To understand a handle of thought, well, we'll need to get a handle on thought. Imagine you have a flat, infinite, and interconnected plane, like a giant bedsheet spread flat out into infinity. If you were to take a hold of any point on that sheet and pull up, not only would you get that point, but all the other interconnected points, relative and proximal to the point that you pulled, would also come along. With thought as the medium and matrix of the psyche, this dynamic reflects the nature of thought in relationship to itself and other thoughts. Basically, the nature of thought. For example, once again, if you were to think dog, many other relative and subsets of thoughts would come along with that single thought. Subsets like four legs and fur go into defining that thought. There are even more personal subsets of thought, like a type of dog that may relate to a dog you know. There are interconnected thoughts, like the legendary feud between cats and dogs, or maybe the idea of wolves comes along. Depending on how dog is pulled from the infinitely many thoughts that can be thought, relative and proximal thoughts will always come along. A symbol is used as a handle to pull on a specific thought. In the second example that I used, the symbol or handle was a word. Therefore, that handle was a phonetic handle. Now, the different handles can use other various senses or no senses at all. Here's another example. The sound of a school bell is a symbol. A stop sign at an intersection is a symbol. Even the specific way you shake someone's hand can be a symbol. Any symbol is a handle for thought or a group of thoughts even. Words specifically, as I said before, are phonetic handles for thought. Phonetics dealing with hearing. Just like there used to be a program called Hooked on Phonics, where children would learn to read based on the sound of what they were reading, as opposed to sounding out each individual letter in the traditional sense. Let's, however, take this a bit further, seeing as how we are making an effort not to limit our conceptions to the physical world, its electromagnetic spectrum, sound waves included. Said differently, let's try and keep this non-physical. Imagine for a moment, if you will, the voice of your mother, maybe your father, or if you have neither, a teacher that you knew. As you imagine the voice, you don't need an ear to do that. The degree to which you can hear that voice has nothing to do with your physical ears. Phonetics is not limited to physical hearing. Hearing without sound waves is most certainly possible. In fact, we interact with it consistently. This is through the use of symbol. If thought is the medium and matrix of the psyche, then symbols make up the nodes or connecting points for all information therein. The type of symbol or handle for thought that a word is not necessarily based on sound, but the concept of hearing, which is phonetics. Just like the old riddle, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one to hear it, does it make a sound? Without the observer to do hearing, there is no distinction between any other electromagnetic excitation. Hearing is a method of interpretation and translation. Your body can mimic this process in using the physical world frequencies in vibration, along with the organization of your brain. This, however, does not mean that these functions originate in the physical world. Remember, in diving to the depths of the left-hand path, it is not as simple as embodying the Most High in your physical life policy. To be more than a simple leftish poser, you need to lean in to what self is and the nature of that. The directive is to go within, but not within another emergent property of space-time. Push beyond the illusionary veil of sensory perception and space-time, beyond physical world framing to the very roots of experience and perception itself. I'll end with this. In general, we frame our thoughts in language, and words are the bricks of that framework. All right, yeah, the words thing is serious. Like, no, Dawson, it's not about verbal cues, not verbal cues. Verbal cues aren't included in this. It's a form of communication, but the emphasis for words is not necessarily communication. That's a use of them. Words are phonetic handles for thought. A handle for thought. A symbol is a handle for thought. Okay, just like the example I used in the video. If I think dog, that's going to pull on the core idea of dog. And with that core idea is going to come other ideas that are attached to it, like four legs and fur. Four legs and fur aren't exclusive to dogs. And a matter of fact, if I would have just pulled four legs, I'd have got other things with four legs. Okay? Words are a mechanism or are a handle to pull on. All right? It's not so much the sound. All right, the sound wave isn't what's doing it. For the body, yeah, that's what's doing it. In the world, but not of it. I'm not my body, you know. See, once again, niggas just feeling good. They don't know what the fuck they're looking at or what they're talking about. Okay. Phonetic handle for thought. The handle for thought is based in the sense of hearing. Okay. Like you can have clairaudience. You know, clairaudience, people who can hear things psychically. They're not hearing them from the electromagnetic spectrum. The electromagnetic spectrum is part of the physical world. It's part of the illusionary appearance of a place. It's not a thing outside of this. Like the same way you play Mario, him growing big from a mushroom, getting a star, being invincible, and shooting fireballs don't exist outside of his world. It's not that it's not a thing in that world, and it most certainly is. There's all kind of mechanics to it, but it don't exist outside of that. All right, when you're talking, in the beginning was the Word. All right, in the beginning, the Word. In the beginning, the Word. What's the beginning? The beginning is God, obviously. God was the Word, and the Word was with God. This stuff goes beyond sound waves. All right. And I get people like to do the thing where, you know, oh, frequency and vibration is everything. Okay, but once again, it's not saying anything. Everything is light. Everything is love. Aside from the fact that you're saying all things are one thing, you're not putting any detail in it. It's another way to motivate yourself to feel good. These motherfuckers doing daily affirmations because they're not convinced about this shit. You got to spend day after day trying to convince yourself while you lie to yourself about the fact that you're convinced. Whatever. Words invoke other words. All right? Like if I say something about left, I've already invoked the existence of right. This is how the Most High creates Earth, or the Most Low. It's not a spooky fuck magic. By simply being the Most High, you invoke the existence of a Most Low. It's like saying I'm gonna have an up but no down. There's no such thing. Part of what makes up is down. Fire and water and the elements, they define one another. Masculine and feminine, not male and female. Masculine and feminine, they define one another. This is why it's a misnomer to think that the triple blackness of space is simply the Great Mother. It's feminine in name. Why? Because if I talk about the female, the feminine, not the female, if I talk about the feminine, it immediately invokes both the masculine and the child. It's what sits between the two. It connects them. The Great Mother is not feminine or female. It gives rise to masculine and feminine. It's neither of them. The child is androgynous. Why is the child androgynous and not the triple blackness? Because androgyny is the combination of masculine and feminine. It's a mix of the two. Therefore, you have to express those before you can mix them. The devil's in the details. The Great Mother is feminine in name only. All right? There are three aspects to ignorance, or zero, or the fool. Okay? Because people use Great Mother, I just went ahead and used Great Father and Great Child and finish it up. And we'll get into that. Like this shit ain't just to feel good. It's some serious stuff. Well, not serious. It's like it's not funny to use it however the fuck you want to. I'm saying it's in terms of comprehending self. You have to be able to navigate your own language. You have to be able to we frame our thoughts in language, and words are the bricks, wood, and nails of that fucking framing. There's even philosophy of language. Get into philosophy of language. What makes a language? When people talk about etymology, etymology isn't just old definitions. That's not like words evolve in families. It wasn't just some caveman sitting somewhere. Oh, what the fuck is this? We're gonna call it a rock. No, words develop and evolve in groups. If you know the family of words, or how words are composed, prefixes, root words, suffixes, you can unpack any word you see. Motherfuckers get out here talking about some oh my God, this stupid shit. Just putting two sounds together, or taking a word like here's one. Imagination. Image in nation. Imagination. Image in nation. It's a nation of images within you. No. That's not etymology. That's nothing. That's gibberish. It's gibberish. Just because you feel excited to see something don't mean you saw shit. Fuck. Well, look, it's a good mnemonic device, okay? But it's not how words are composed. See, it's your relationship to reasoning. It's your relationship to reasoning. I don't got to be an asshole about it. All right. Handles for thought seem to invoke income manifestation. Okay, spells. Yeah. Words. They exist in family. You pull one, you're pulling another. But that's because it exists upon the underlying nature of thought itself. So I mean, it's they're the handles for it. Just different places you can pick it up and pull. I gotta get back to Aaliyah's question here. She asked the question: is there a difference between spirituality and occultism? Yeah, real simple. I make the distinction all the time. I don't really explain it, so yeah, I should do that. Occult means hidden. Well, one of the meanings of occult is hidden or not apparent. Okay, occultists and spiritualists deal with the same reality. There we go. They deal with the same reality, although spiritualists will deal with it from the apparent side. Occultists deal with it from the unapparent side. Yeah, that's the biggest distinction of it. The spiritualists will deal with it on the apparent side. The occultists will deal with it on the unapparent side, using the subtle energies. But yeah, man, the words are your greatest tool in this. All right, just speaking, however, like a child or a slave isn't going to get you to be the royalty you say you are. I'm a god. I'm a god. What does that mean? You know, it's not about motivating yourself and manifesting. Like, you're already manifest. There's no need to ask somebody how to do that. See, motherfuckers are quick to ask how to do that. When you ask how, you presume to have the what, who, where, and when. You don't get to a when. Or if you can give me a when something happened or something is, that also generally answers the what, who, and where. Example. I'll give you a when. At Jesus's wedding, where he turned wine to water. At a wedding in Galilee. That was it. That's what it was. At a wedding in Galilee. Okay? Galilee. Ugh. At a wedding in Galilee. There's your when. All right? Who? Galileans. What? A wedding. And now where? Galilee. If I can give you a when, it usually combines all of what, who, and where. All right? But unless you have those along with when, you're not going to be able to explain how or why. It's like, it's not just sounds. Children think of it like that. It's not just sounds. These things have a shape to them. There's a form. They interconnect. You know, form is not simply limited to physical manifestation. There's a lot of space between absolute nothing and physical manifestation. Once again, man, it bothers me because this is what people will use to keep the conversation not going anywhere so that they feel correct in what they're doing, because the only thing they're trying to get to is feeling correct. All right? No. There's a if you can say that everybody is right, it immediately invokes that everybody is wrong. And it's not even just that duality that you'll find in a lot of words. It's the nature of how they define one another. For example, right and wrong. Without the possibility of wrong, there isn't right. There isn't right. Just like you can have absolute darkness without generating light. But light comes from darkness, so you're not going to have light without darkness. You cannot have right without the possibility of wrong. It's like a game that you play and it's impossible to lose, so you win every time. It's not even a game. Without the possibility of wrong, there can be no right. You have to dig in. And not just simply that, call these motherfuckers out. Shit, you hear somebody being pretentious about something that's obviously not, say something. Get them. Get them. Please, fuck. Everyone's in their own lane. Look, get out here and practice smacking these motherfuckers around. If one thing you can do is tell them area set, I mean, you do that, tell them I said it. But still, get your practice in, man. Learn to combat these ideas. Learn to challenge conceptions, because some of y'all, it's difficult for you to do it within yourself, which is where you're supposed to be doing it. But if you need to practice like that, man, just get out there. Ask somebody why they did it and try and see where they're right and you're wrong, and then switch it around. It's like I was talking about about debate in one of my videos. You got to know both sides to an argument. Otherwise, you don't get the argument. If you can't tell me both sides, all you have is a strong opinion. You need to be able to understand your opponent's side. That's art of war shit. That's art of war shit. All right, check me out. I'm gonna get into the second half of the three densities of the Fool, okay? Because this is the meat of this shit. This is the meat of it. The Great Father is the density of necessary ignorance. It is the first and lowest of the three densities. All of the niggas that Brandon was attempting to make fun of are in that particular density of ignorance. For the framework that I present, I like to call these people default dead. However, to be a bit more precise, this is the density of those that come to this reality to be ignorant. This category not only includes most men and women of the planet, but all the remaining life as well. Said differently, this density of ignorance in embodying the Fool is the grand majority of the necessarily ignorant. Said differently once again, the many that are in the world and of it. Those who lie down completely under the strong illusion of space-time. The main takeaway, which we already know, is this, that this density of ignorance has no access to the progression towards and beyond the magician at one. Why? Because there are still two densities of ignorance that need to be navigated in order to properly untether yourself from your own self-imposed ignorance. Next, I will discuss the third and highest of these three densities. And yes, I'm well aware that I skipped over the second. I'll come back to it. The Great Child is the density of inevitable ignorance, and it is the only density that gains access to the progression towards and beyond the magician at one. This is the density of the Fool that Brandon was attempting to refer to, being in the world but not of it. For those who embody the Fool at the density of inevitable ignorance, now possess the capacity to wield ignorance and illusion at various densities of reality. In fact, this is what allows the progression into and beyond one, all the way through 21, and then finally being ready to begin the great work. Now, the density that's right there in the middle between those previously two discussed densities of ignorance is the density of willful ignorance. Just like the density of the Great Father, this density of the Great Mother does not have access to the unfolding at one and beyond. Because, once again, as I've stated before, there's still an additional layer of ignorance that needs to be navigated before that process can ever be undertaken. This second density of willful ignorance is exactly where Brandon is at. Period. Brandon will tell you all day, even if he had ever considered that there were densities to ignorance, that he is in fact at this third and highest level of ignorance. This is false. Those who find themselves at this second density of ignorance have generally fallen into one of the many traps along the path to shedding ignorance. I like to call those hero cookies. Like Brandon and his social media posts, he has taken the measure of his progress beyond those in the density below to mean that he has reached the heights of ignorance for himself. Said differently, he is impressed with himself for having escaped Christianity and now knowing what the real truth is. Or so he says. They're drunk on their prideful elitism, and they're actively avoiding the possibility of being incorrect. They will generally say things like, "Ultimately, everyone is right, so anything I do can never really be wrong." Or, "Debating is beneath me. You gotta go within." Or maybe even, "I only make jokes about dead niggas because it's fun. Really, I get how all this stuff works." And there's my favorite. "I don't have to explain anything to you. You wouldn't get it anyways. You're too low vibrational. You're not on the level." Quite frankly, I'm down for a roast session, or telling jokes just as much as any other troll is. Here's the thing though. Those who are at the second density of ignorance very often do not make it past their initial shedding of an old ignorance. Why? Because they settle for motivation, inspiration, and lavishing in the pride of appearing to be something different from those who are still necessarily ignorant. They continue to focus their energies on altering the necessarily ignorant or expecting more of them. They'll do this in many different forms, sometimes veiled as a reverse virtue signaling humor. I just can't understand how anyone would be like that. Nigga, he was Christian last year. I just don't get how people can think like this. You're not trying to. You want to make sure you feel better than someone who you would consider to be stupid, even though they're necessarily ignorant. Other times, as regurgitated information delivered in some passive-aggressive manner to imply their elitism. One of the most common ways is to having some type of a calling to wake people up. Oh no, who need to hear this? Head-ass niggas. Navigating each density of ignorance is necessary. There isn't one particular density that's good or bad to be in. Each progression through ignorance is an unfolding into the next, building upon what has been either established or destroyed. What determines the density of ignorance that one finds themselves to be in is not what some spooky elite organization is doing on the planet. It doesn't depend on the melanin in the constitution of your body or some pseudoscientific oil. It doesn't depend on some sacred society's initiation rites or some alien from another planet. What will in fact be the determining factor is both your relationship with your own ignorance and your willingness to openly and honestly seek to find said ignorance within your own beliefs and knowledge. Said differently, you have no room to complain about the state of the world until you stop falsifying your relationship to it. If the pinnacle of your occult knowledge is virtue signaling about how you're better than a Christian somehow, I can almost guarantee you're not that much better. In fact, I would say that your potential to progress is more than likely stunted, and your claims to spirituality are necessarily aesthetic and shallow. Let the dead lie with the dead. Independent of your inevitable ignorance, you can strive to stop being willfully ignorant and prove to yourself without a shadow of a doubt that you are only necessarily ignorant. Now, I have heard click the wrong thing. Yo, it's good to see YouTube didn't kick me off this time. I love that. I love that. I cringe every time somebody says, I don't know who need to hear this, right? It's probably the motherfucker type that shit. Want to play it off like, this clearly isn't for me, but I know somebody needs to hear it. Wink. Fuck out of here. Yes, sir. Kundalini. How you talking about? Niggas love to say Kundalini. Fucking ridiculous. Out here motivating and wish fulfilling. All right, look. I'm gonna break these densities of the food down just a little bit more to make sure I drive this shit home. Okay. Like I said before, the Great Mother, the triple blackness of space, is feminine in name only. All right. Feminine and masculine define one another. More especially, the triple blackness of space gives rise to feminine and masculine, so it is neither. It's neither. All right, just to put that there. Now, there are three densities here, okay? Like I said, the Great Father is the density of necessarily ignorant. In order for there to be knowledgeable, there must be ignorant. Otherwise, how could you tell the difference between two? All right? They're going to define one another. The definition for this one will create the definition for this one. It's like 0 and 1, okay? Ultimate nothingness and the one thing that's all things. The two of them define one another. Nothing and everything. They define one another. Masculine and feminine, left and right, hot and cold, fire, water. They define one another. Okay, so this is going to be the largest majority of all existence in the physical realm is necessarily ignorant. Necessarily ignorant. Imagine if your fingernails were as knowledgeable and were as knowledgeable and influential, there's the word, influential as your brain cells. It would fuck shit up. A lot of this has to be necessarily ignorant. A lot of the physical world is completely necessarily ignorant. All right? A lot of these motherfuckers may as well be animals. I mean, it is what it is. It's not a slight against them. Hell, because I'm not trying to be them. I'm not trying to be the nigga that's got to play that role. But stop. I remember being a nigga like that. No. So they're necessarily ignorant. It's like I was talking about. You got the folks who are running a race and the motherfuckers in the audience. These are the motherfuckers in the audience. They come to physical existence to be ignorant. So there's no ha look at them. Like it's like somebody laughing at a dog for doing dog shit. Like who's the dumbass there? This is how the reason I want to emphasize the densities of the fool is because we're in a place where there are no more initiatory rites. The cultures and religions are gone. The mystery schools are gone. At least their physical forms are, okay? And so if you out here trying to figure out what's what, especially if you're not trying to spend the next 30 years sifting through the dirt, you gotta develop some type of discernment for telling who the charlatans are. All right? And the biggest thing is you're not going to be able to see that in anybody else till you can see it in you. Period. It's going to be completely invisible to you. The only thing you'll be able to see is your avoidance of it in yourself. All right? So the first thing you do is check yourself with this shit. Not check to see, well, let me see what I can say about that. Like, no. All right? Check yourself in there. The grand majority are necessarily ignorant. They didn't even come to race. So the fact that they're not moving fast isn't a big deal. Okay? That second level with the Great Mother. This is willfully ignorant. All right? These are the people who are ignorant for the sake or foolish for the sake of foolishness. Okay? This is where I'm telling you Brandon is. Out here posting the height of his spirituality is showing Christians that they're not right. If that motherfucker was open to seeing they were not right, then they'd see it. They're clearly not open to it. Why? Because they're not looking for it. Just like your ass was when you was Christian. You wasn't looking to be open to how you were wrong. Then it got shoved down your throat. You felt traumatized and ran from religion. And you got to look back and keep trying to show these niggas that they're wrong. I'm here to wake y'all up. Let the dead lie with the dead. Trying to convince a dog or explain to a dog a fucking library or politics. Like, no, that's not what it does. That's not what it's here for. As a matter of fact, your urgency, which you think you need to enlighten this motherfucker, is just you showing how much you wish someone, not only how much you wish somebody would come enlighten you, but how much you don't get the scenario. You don't get the nature of your predicament. You still think you're one of them. That's why I tell y'all, human is the lie. Let the dead lie with the dead. You don't need to form some group here to where you guys all agree and say, yeah, I believe what you believe and I believe what you believe. Yeah, we're tapping in. No, you're not. You're not. You're circle jerking. You're telling each other that you're correct so everybody gets to feel good. The conversation ain't moving forward. This is why people are so confused, because everything is right. So then what do? Oh, you're already doing it. Well, wasn't I already doing it as a Christian? Why'd I change anything? Oh, well, because Jesus ain't real. Oh, so now there's real and not real. So what's real? And it's whatever bullshit they say. And if it can be whatever bullshit you say, then the Christians are right too. Them dead niggas are right too. But see, you don't really believe everybody's right till somebody challenges your shit. That's what it is. See, this is what I'm saying. It's willful ignorance. They're willfully in a place so that they can feel good. All right. These first two levels do not have access to the forward progression into enlightenment. It's impossible to do it from there. It's impossible. First, the Great Father, it's because it's necessarily ignorant. It's not even in the scope. At the Great Mother, in willful ignorance, you already convinced you're there. So you're not going to see how to get there. You already think you got it. You got all your energy focused on where you've been and what you thought you were because you still think that's you. You still think that's you. That's why you got to do these daily affirmations trying to convince yourself of some shit you said you already believe. You want to be inevitably ignorant. At the very least, you're not going to escape all ignorance. There's going, like I also say, part of seeing is not seeing. What you can perceive is defined by everything that you cannot. All right, that's what gives it its definition. That's what allows you to make distinctions within what you perceive. Everything you don't perceive. Imagine if you was looking at your hand, right? I can see my hand, but if I was looking at the level of simply the tissues or cells or atoms, there's no hand. There's no hand. Simply me not being able to see that allows me to define this. Like, to what degree am I not looking at the planet itself? I don't see the whole planet. To what degree am I not looking at the solar system itself? I don't see the whole solar system. What you don't see defines what you do see. All right, this is why the occultists would rather work in the unapparent as opposed to the apparent. But once again, inevitable ignorance. You get to the level of the child by embracing the fact that you're ignorant. It's what's going to move you toward the type of enlightenment you're seeking. I don't want to trash enlightenment. I don't want to trash enlightenment because, like I'm saying, it polarizes the idea of ignorance. Okay, it's necessary. Before you know, you got to not know. Just like 0 and 1. Before you can have one, everything, you got to have nothing. They define one another. Okay, so once you get to the place of the heart and mind of a child, this isn't being like a kid. It's being open to how wrong you can be. You need to actively be seeking, where am I wrong? Not where am I right and let me show a Christian. Like, what is that going to do? Well, let me guess. Imagine if you convinced all the Christians, right? You convinced all the Christians. Now what? We come together in a new church. Let this world go. Illusion doesn't mean fake. It means it's not what it appears to be. This ain't the game. Telling dead niggas, guiding dead niggas, you may as well just go back and be pastor. Like, that's what a lot of you niggas is doing. You going out here and you're trying to be the pastor. Trying to show people, hey man, come look at this. Oh no, you can't question that. You know, this is the truth in the way. Don't you know about the chakras in the pineal gland? Fuckheads. Fuckheads. Dawson says, so is the last density of the fool is the one catching the L's trying desperately to get it. Oh, you want to try desperately to catch the L's. All right, the one in the middle, the density of the Great Mother, that's the one trying desperately not to catch L's and to get it. No, go towards the L. This whole idea of yourself as this is a joke. Once you start to get a handle on what yourself is, you look back at this, it's a fucking joke. Let this go. Catch the L's. You can't win, human. There's nothing to win. There's no one to give the award. Like, you can't win. You can't win this game. The only winning move is not to play the game. You got to stop playing human. Human is a lie. Seek those L's. They gonna come. Don't try and avoid them. See, these other motherfuckers are gonna try to avoid the L's and win at human. I'm the spookiest spiritual human. I know all about the chakras and the aura. Fuck that. Fuck that. These people are mixing and matching different pantheons. They're mixing and matching maps. That's what it is. You done took a map somebody made over here, another map somebody made over here, and you just decided, well, I'll take this piece, that piece, this piece, and this piece, and I must got it. Because you know everybody's right and nobody's wrong. If that's the case, why don't you just follow that other shit? Because it was right. It wasn't right for me. Now we're getting somewhere. What is me? Human body and personality again. Oh, but I'm in the world, but not of it. Okay, so what are you out of it? Everything. A roach is everything. A particle of dust is everything. What difference does that make? You're not really saying anything. You could have said that with fucking Christianity. Oh, everything is God. Great job. Great job. It's not what you think. It's how you think. See, the magician, just like I was talking about how 0 and 1 define each other. Okay. Because when you're talking about infinite nothingness, okay, you're talking about the first part of it, which is completely inert. Okay, it's the aspect of it that's simply nothing. The infinite part. Then you have the potential part. All right, this is like this is the way I like to explain it. All right, because geometrically it's easier to intuit. Think of the empty space and the X, Y, and Z axis, okay? The empty space and the X, Y, and Z axis are the same things. They're the same things. That X, Y, and Z holds the capacity to contain any point that you could make. Okay? So you got that, you got the infinite potential or the empty space, and then the X, Y, and Z axis, okay? The X, Y, and Z axis is the density of the child. The empty space itself is the density of the father. The concept for an axis at all is the mother. How do you go from absolutely empty space to axes? There's that middle part, which is the concept of an axis at all. All right, so you got all three of those densities, and you don't even have a point yet. There's no line, there's still nothing. Just the potential for something, okay? And the only part of that that's going to interact with those points is the axes. But not simply the idea of axes or simply the empty space. The axes themselves. This outward part of the infinite potential, unexpressed, okay? Simply having the unexpressed invokes the express, maybe not at the same time. Because these 0 and 1, they're correct. They're each correct, but not at the same time. They define one another. It's the details. This is why I say be impeccable with your word. Because the form of what you're trying to build is going to be made of that. It's like if you took the spirit of you and put it in a fucking coffee mug. The form isn't going to match up with the thing. It'd be funny, though. I guess it'd be funny. I don't know. I think it'd be funny. But then when would you get the joke? No. Okay. Never mind. I'm going somewhere else. Anyways. What was I talking about? I don't know. Oh! Really? Okay. The thing about the magician part, okay? This is the magician because the whole tarot, it's the story of the fool. All right? Just like the whole zodiac is the story of fire. Okay? This is the story of the fool and his transition, his progression. The great work don't start till after you get to the world. Once the fool knows himself as the world, then the work can begin. These other steps are the development toward that. But none of those are possible unless you've taken yourself out of that pool of necessary ignorance. Okay? The magician is the first step into knowing. Okay? Because the only ignorance you have left is the ignorance that's inevitable. The ignorance that's inevitable in order to define knowing. Absolute ignorance doesn't define anything but itself. The ignorance that's inevitable gives rise or defines the idea of even knowing. That's why the magician is number one. And it still goes through all these transitions to get all the way to the world. Once the self can see itself as the whole thing, it can get back to the work it's been doing. The work you've been doing ain't physical life. If you sit down and play Super Mario, you just stop what you were doing to go do something else. There's nothing in that world that is the work that you were doing. Hey, unless of course, maybe you want to say you here to wake people up. Okay, great job. And good luck with that. Remember not to eat your kids. That's what I'm learning. Anyways, I got one more segment for y'all. One more segment. Just so I'm not being a dick and going all over the place. Where's my last segment? Here we go. If you've seen some of my stuff, maybe you probably haven't looked at all this stuff because the segment. Now, this is where the knowledge of self really began to come full circle. I thought I had been doing the work because I felt great, powerful, almost free even. Nope. The metaphysics showed me that I had to go deeper. As I studied maxims and philosophy of law, I finally unfolded the old metaphysics on the walls of my room. I had a bunch of whiteboards. Most of them were full at this point. I had a framework for continuity with the cosmic, which is what I think a lot of people have been missing, is a continuity. How does what I am here connect to the whole framework and not just a story? You have to know the framework beneath the story. Otherwise, it's just a bedtime story. And I've begun to form a communicable framework. So I had found my system that I was looking for, but not only that, I could see it within myself. In fact, I could clearly map out many essential structures of self, the different archetypes that I was finding in the metaphysics. They were coming through in my own works, in my own aspects of self, and the things that I saw when I went into me. Things that I didn't see being taught anywhere else. And at this point, I didn't need to repeat the axioms of my teachers in order to support my own beliefs. But still rang true the question, what is self? The occult opened my scope of speculation. Metaphysics strengthened my comprehension and knowledge. But the left-hand path brought me to the door of self. Every step of that path, and along with the confirmation in my knowledge that I was gaining, compelled me to strip away more and more of what I had used to call myself. I was able to dig deeper into the religion of humanity and root out the subtle agreements I still held. I think there's a lot of controversy around the idea of human and humanity. As far as the physical realm is concerned, there is a kingdom of man. It stands atop animal, plant, and mineral. But there's no such thing as a human. It's another religion. The same way that there's no such thing as a Christian or a Muslim. It's another religion. It has the history or its theology about how it came to be. Nowadays, the grand majority of the priests for the religion of humanity are called scientists. I mean, they tell you, hey, scientists did this, scientists did that. You don't know a nigga named scientist. You don't know any scientists. But it's given the same force and effect as a priest would be given back in the times where religion was much more of a bigger game. But humanity is definitely a religion. The concept of there even being something called a human, that's not a historical conception that we've been tagging along. That's new. That shit's very new. And so there's an entire ideology behind it. It's what determines whether or not what you did was good, bad, appropriate, doing a little bit too much, All that is encompassed in your morality, but that but that's tailored into what you think you are, what you conceive yourself to be. Where does your story begin and end? Because for all humans, it begins and ends on this planet. Now, this was beyond simply calling myself human, even beyond the agreements I made as a human. Like, the body comes with family. Whose family is it? Is it yours? How do you feel about that? Just honestly, the family, the friends, the likes and dislikes, the different agreements I'd made to my conception of self as something physical. Beyond even the events on the planet and what may or may not have happened in the life of this body or any other body that this soul may use as a vessel. Beyond all of that, what was self? What is self? And in all of this digging, that's where I really learned about myself. And when I say I learned more about myself, what does that mean? I'm not learning more about the personality that comes along with the body. I'm talking about the soul. Learn to place myself as the soul, beginning my line of thinking from the correct premises. Because you can know exactly how to do the little hopscotch jump, it's called hopscotch. You do a little hopscotch jump, but you do it with your eyes closed. But if someone doesn't start you in front of that square with the number 1 on it, your jumps are going to be wrong. Even if your form is perfect, you have to start in the correct premises. And so that's what I made sure I was doing. Now, identifying with the soul required shedding countless subtle agreements to physical conception. Now, along with that came clarity on self. I could actually see not simply the continuity of events in the life of this body, but continuity between the different non-physical and physical manifestations I've had as that soul, through different lives, through different forms of existence. And it's not simply being able to see the different places, see the different forms, but to see the continuity between them. Being able to see what it is and was that I've been doing. But more importantly, why? I learned of parts of my own saga as coming down here initially as subtyphon to bring down with what people call the left-hand path today, back before the turn of the Iron Age, in the form of the ancient temples, the ancient orders and rites. Learn what I as soul does here and why. How I slept through the actual Iron Age as Shiva in the Hindu pantheon until needing to take physical form again to leave. That's part of the reason I'm the ego now. This soul comes from an adversarial density of the chaos realms. There are souls from varying densities of the chaos realms that come to do different things. Some come here to be dead. Come here to live as just an animal. Some come here to exist as concepts. It's true that the self is all things. It's everything. But that's an axiom, a conceptual truth. The details, though, aren't so cut and dry. The devil is in the details. The earth is the lowest point. Earth is hell. In the details is where we find ourselves. Quoting axioms can be affirming on the journey, but the work itself calls for more than just affirming my personality, that it could be successful. The point was, what self must I think I am to be defining success in this manner? Where am I placing my center of conception? What self am I right now? When you have the metaphysics of being, it's simple to discern one aspect of the self from another. The self isn't just one thing, it's appearing to be. That's why I couldn't settle for repeating spiritual words or loose understanding of how my own explanations to myself were constructed. It wasn't about having to explain it to someone else. It was about how am I explaining this to myself and why. Because at the end of the day, if all this stuff going on here is an illusion, is not what it appears to be, what's the truth? Which part isn't an illusion? So naturally, keeping to my work and continuing to dig more into metaphysics, I hit another glass ceiling, naturally. Now, with my new glass ceiling, I already knew my course of action. But this time, I looked to see what others were teaching in the left-hand path. And what I found. Like, I'm sitting there thinking about what Dawson was asking. And I'm trying to find the crux of what the misconception is, because I don't want to simply say that he's wrong. These things are frameworks. These things are subjective existences. Okay. Like there's a distinct difference between objective and subjective. And one of the things people generally do in describing the physical world, describing objective reality, is they describe it subjectively. And then they try and take these subjective realities and describe them objectively. Like chakras. Chakras are a subjective concept. But people insist on trying to describe them objectively. Okay? And doing that is going to taint your understanding of the whole thing. Like here's an example of how people describe objective reality in a subjective sense. The government, the police, the media. There's no such thing as the government. There's no such thing as the government. There's no such thing as the police. Every police enforcement agency is an agency. It has a jurisdiction. In fact, its name is generally in the jurisdiction. Where you get the idea of the police is movies and television. But if you describe these objective things in a subjective manner, you're going to miss the details of how they work. Generally, people are going to do this because they want to be able to say what they feel, what they mean to say, and have somebody understand you. And this stuff isn't so you can convince anyone else. It's not even so you can convince me. Fuck me, I'm a joke, I'm a mess. This isn't about making sure you say it the right way so that Arius is convinced. No. You need to figure out what about the way I'm saying it has me convinced. Or if I'm not convinced, why aren't I convinced? Just going into a group of people and everybody's agreeing with you it doesn't challenge your perspective. And you're the thing in your own way. There's not something out here to get some new system to explain it right. It's looking at your own mechanisms to navigate, or how does this make sense, or why do I agree with this? And being ruthlessly honest with yourself. The work ain't out here. It's go within, not go together. And that's not within the meat bag. It's not about convincing me. Don't try and figure me out. One, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. You can't figure me out. Two, let's say you do. All the energy you put into figuring me out ain't no me. The fuck? Like, stop playing human. If you're going to say everything is connected, lean into that. What do you mean by that? What is you? In the world, but not of it. Lean into that. Don't just say it to feel good. And if you are, know that you're at that second density of illusion. That second density of ignorance. Excuse me, not illusion. Ignorance. That second density of ignorance. You're willfully ignorant, not because you're showing everybody else, but because you're not showing you. I don't care who the hell agrees with you when you walk in a room. That don't mean what you said made sense. That person agreed because they want to make sure everybody's going to agree when they got the next thing to come out with their mouth with. Don't convince me. Convincing me? What the fuck is that gonna do? Oh, Aries approved. You know, Aries thinks what I said is right. Oh, you challenge me, you're challenging Aries. No. Gonna fucking leverage my existence. Fuck that shit. Oh, man. Ain't no me. Let me go. Let me go. What is you? It's go within. Within what? Within yourself. What is you? And what's got you convinced of the answer you came to? See, that's more important. Ain't gonna be no something that's gonna tell you whether or not the answer is right. It's up to you to be determining right or wrong. But how are you already doing it? It's up to you to find the holes in your foundation, not for you to be mad that I'm sitting in one of your holes. It's right here. That's what I do. I'm trolling a hole. Trolling a hole. All right, man. Look, the sky is clearing up, bro. The sky is clearing up. Your Monday mornings are going to go back to you, okay? If you haven't checked out the Gilded server, do that. Because pretty soon, most of my exclusiveness will be there, more especially for anybody who's got a console or was in the boot camp. I'm putting the finishing touches on what I want to do, but I'm going to do one more boot camp that's at the same $150 price. So if you haven't got it yet, you're going to have to get it once I've upgraded everything. But I want to run this one more time because I want to see. I've been reviewing my old ones and I have one or two little things I want to see. But I'll let everybody know when that comes up. Anyways, y'all enjoy your Monday morning. You got a clear sky now. The shit storm is over, y'all. Go enjoy the sunlight.